We live to learn. We live to expand our perspectives. Life is a journey. When we want to be kind to ourselves, we take a journey. Self-knowledge is the purpose of traveling, and the final destination is back home, after we've been enriched by the people we've met and the places we've visited. The word tourism comes from the French term tour, which means round. Tourism is the act of wandering around for a pleasurable and instructive journey and returning home enriched. Tourism has become a very important economic and cultural activity in the global village that is our planet Earth. It's a huge industry providing millions of jobs, not just concentrated in a few urban and industrial areas, but also spread across otherwise marginal and poorer territories. For the local communities, tourism is more than just a source of revenue. Host communities also expand their horizons by learning from their guests. Often, they revalue their traditions because they see tourists admiring their customs and heritage. When people meet, new ideas emerge, along with broader visions and a more friendly perception of diverse cultural traditions. It is for these multifaceted aspects that tourism is considered an important means of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, a world agenda promoted by the United Nations and its member countries. In particular, tourism contributes to Goal 8, Inclusive and Sustainable Economic Growth, Goal 12, Sustainable Consumption and Production, and Goal 14, Sustainable Use of Oceans and Marine Resources. Not all kinds of tourism contribute to the above goals. There is also an irresponsible and destructive modality of traveling. Mass tourism often overburdens the carrying capacities of host communities, damaging the cultural and natural environment. Over-tourism leaves a trail of environmental degradation, cultural colonization, and social exclusion. In the global community, responsible travelers and responsible hosts, aware of the opportunities and risks of tourism, are engaged in global dialogues for promoting a model of tourism that maximizes its creative potential and minimizes its negative impact. This approach is being called responsible tourism. Now, let's take a journey across the territory of responsible tourism and consult the constitutive elements of its map. In 2002, a United Nations conference was held in Cape Town. In its final declaration, 7 characteristics of responsible tourism were identified. 1. It minimizes negative economic, environmental, and social impacts. 2. It generates greater economic benefits for local people and enhances the well-being of host communities. Improves working conditions and access to the industry. 3. It involves local people in decisions that affect their lives. 4. It makes positive contributions to the conservation of natural and cultural heritage. 5. It provides more enjoyable experiences for tourists through more meaningful connections with local people and a greater understanding of local cultural, social, and environmental issues. 6. It provides access for people with disabilities. 7. And it is respectful of others' cultures and identities, builds local pride and confidence, and fosters a feeling of oneness among tourists and hosts. Sustainability is a goal to be reached. Responsibility is the path with which we create the conditions that determine sustainability. Responsibility requires an ethical stand so that we build a win-win relationship with all stakeholders of the tourism sector. A Global Code of Ethics for Tourism, or GCET, has been adopted and promoted by the United Nations World Tourism Organization. It's a comprehensive set of principles whose purpose is to guide stakeholders in tourism development. In August 2020, Zurab Pololikashvili, Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, made an appeal to the global community. Tourism is a genuine driver of solidarity and development. Let us all fully harness its power to bring people and communities together, abiding by the Global Code of Ethics for Tourism. Responsible travel is about the attitude you take and the choices you make. As an old traveler, I have a bag of experiences I carry with me. Let me share with you the principles I follow when I choose to travel. I gather the information that helps me to better understand the country I'm going to visit. Every country has its specific identity built on its history, values, landscape, and the relationship between its people and its natural environment. It is important that before and while traveling, we get acquainted with our hosts by reading books and travel blogs. Further, we can participate in travelers' communities and interact with them online. Before traveling, I read, study, and do my homework. I learn some basic words of the local language, like hello, please, thank you. You will see that people appreciate it with huge smiles. Also, look online for local tour operators organizing excursions and day trips, and go for the ones operating in a responsible manner. I choose transport that minimizes the carbon footprint. Transportation is one of the largest sources of carbon emissions. I select the airlines that use fuel-efficient aircrafts. I prefer trains to buses and to commute in shared vehicles whenever possible. This also helps me to interact with local people and other travelers. Sometimes I choose to move on footpaths and bicycles. I prefer to utilize local hospitality resources. Small hotels, family accommodations, and guest houses managed by small organizations with a commitment to promote local and sustainable development. I like to experience life in small towns and villages, and from there move into regions that have preserved original natural landscapes. By being a tourist there, I also generate resources for the local population. In such places, responsible tourism is often the only possible economic alternative to the unsustainable exploitation of natural resources. Gastronomy is an essential element of the local culture and identity. Eating is entering into contact with the territory. Tasting is knowing. I also try to ask questions about the ingredients and the stories behind the recipes. I prefer recipes that utilize local organic products and also buy some of them so that once I return to my country, I can prepare some of the dishes I enjoyed during my travels and share my pleasure with others. Photography can be a very pleasant way of interacting with local people. Your photos can also be gifts you leave to your host. Photography also risks to become invasive and disrespectful. I ask for consent and I'm careful not to be insistent or imposing. Understanding different cultures requires intelligence and time. When I travel, I choose not to be judgmental and I balance curiosity with respect. I pay attention to the way I dress, the way I talk, and I try not to show off my wealth with arrogance or presumption. I never categorize customs as superior or inferior, not as richer or poorer. When I see cultural differences, I appreciate them because I think that ultimately they are different ways of expressing the same fundamental human values. When I return to my country, I share what I have learnt. An essential part of our heritage is to remain committed to expanding our knowledge by learning from diverse cultures across the world. I believe traditions are as resilient as they are able to be appreciative and respectful of other traditions and cultures. I promote a responsible modality of traveling. Most of the tourism industry is still managed in an unsustainable and invasive manner. In the ongoing antagonism between sustainable and unsustainable tourism, I take a stand, and I advocate for a responsible modality of traveling. Thank you for attending this event. Let's all contribute to make tourism more responsible. Let's promote awareness that we all live in a common world where diversity is a richness. The harmonious balance of the global ecosystem depends on the prosperity and the dignity of each community and its capacity to live in harmony with others and with nature. We have prepared this presentation to promote a responsible way to travel. If you liked it, do share it with others who may benefit from it.